Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the first morning of our CSAFE All Hands meeting. Right around 200 people are logged on and joining us for the meeting this morning. And so we thank you for taking the time to spend with us and hear a little bit about our plans for the next phase of CSAFE. The next two presentations are bloodstain pattern analysis, time for questions, followed by handwriting. So without further ado, we'll kick off Dr. Halstern to talk about bloodstain pattern analysis.
Thanks, Stacy. Good afternoon, good morning on the West Coast where I am. So I'm a professor of statistics at UC Irvine and want to talk to you about bloodstain pattern analysis work in CSAFE. So as with the previous presentations, I'll start by talking about the bloodstain pattern work that was done under CSAFE 1.0 over the initial funding period. This is primarily done by other groups, as I'll describe, and I've become more involved in bloodstain pattern analysis recently. The first 5 years of CSAFE included two bloodstain projects, one at Iowa State and one at Carnegie Mellon. The Iowa State group produced two data sets, both published alongside articles describing them in the journal Data in Brief, and each consisting of about 60 bloodstain patterns. And then a series of articles trying to address some of the key questions in bloodstain pattern analysis, determining the area of origin of an event, and trying to classify or identify the mechanism for bloodstain patterns. In the Carnegie Mellon group, worked on developing a set of videos analogous to those that have been in the literature before. And I'll say a little bit more about that in a minute. I think the databases we've provided are a great resource for the community because it's an environment where there have not been a lot of generally available bloodstain pattern images. It's the work that was published under CSAFE 1.0 is also, to my knowledge, the first work on region of origin that attempts to quantify the uncertainty associated with that, and that's a core activity of CSAFE. So let me say a teeny bit more on the data. This is from the gunshot data set. There's a brief sketch of the experimental setup, sorry, not the gunshot, for the impact beating. And then on the right-hand side, you see a bloodstain pattern, the tall image, and then increasingly close-ups of what those images look like. One of the uses and one of the publications that uses those data is an attempt to classify the bloodstain by identifying features that may distinguish different mechanisms. And so this is just one example, and I'll say more about where we're heading in CSAFE 2.0. But here they took the bloodstain and looked at the proportion of the stains that were in different distances from the center of the overall pattern. And the picture on the right shows that the distribution of stains in terms of their distance from the center looks very different for the gunshot spatters and the beating spatters, for example, suggesting that that may be an approach to classify mechanism. And the last piece of CSAFE 1.0 I want to describe is a group at Carnegie Mellon that set up a high-speed video camera to collect data. And they've been early stages of doing experiments. The pictures you see are from a water droplet, but they're also working now with fake blood droplets. And you see a sequence of 4 frames here that show the drop occurring. And the group at Carnegie Mellon is in the process of trying to summarize some of the experiments they've done. So there's no publications yet. There are a couple of things in progress. With that said, let me talk a teeny bit about where we're headed in CSAFE 2.0. In CSAFE 2.0, we're going to continue thinking about the two main questions, and again, try to make sure we incorporate uncertainty in our analyses. And so we continue to look for analytic approaches to assist with the practice of bloodstain pattern analysis. And what we've done going forward is there's now just a single project that I'm going to be heading up, but that will bring in the Iowa State team. And it also is a collaboration with Michael Taylor in New Zealand, who I've started to talk to over the last couple of years. And what the project is doing is trying to make more formal somehow the definition of features. So we're starting at the beginning with an image processing pipeline. That's the picture at the top right you see there, is taking a single kind of connected stain, in this case, and it looks like maybe comprised of 4 drops that landed on top of each other, and do an image processing to approximate complex stains like this by sets of ellipses, and using those ellipses to define features. So this is closely related to the work that was done in the Iowa State group. And then the goal is to use those features to do either classification work, which is the approach the Iowa State folks did in the first part of CSAFE, or try to move in a direction that looks a little bit more like the likelihood ratio based on the features that we might define. We think the work is potentially quite exciting because the likelihood ratio is getting a lot of attention, and my original conversation with Michael Taylor was, wouldn't it be neat to see just a proof of concept of what that might look like in practice? In terms of where we think we're going, we think kind of over the next couple of years, we'll try to build up the technology to define the features on complex stains. And then we would be, and work with some test data sets, the ones generated by Iowa State, some perhaps generated by Michael Taylor and some interns he's had in New Zealand. But we're also very, very interested as we get going in trying to get a sense for what case-like materials look like. One of the limitations of what we've been doing, obviously, is all the data are simulated. And therefore, we don't know how well it will capture the diversity that one might expect in the real world. I'll stop there, a couple of minutes over. I apologize.
Thank you, Hal. I will now open up for questions from the audience. I think perhaps the easiest way that we found to engage with presenters is through the Q&A function, which can be found at the bottom of your screen. If you hover over the bottom of the Zoom screen, there should be a few more options that present. The Q&A is listed there. You also may raise your hand and be called on to interact with any of our bloodstain pattern research members. Okay, seeing no questions for the bloodstain pattern analysis team, we will move on to handwriting analysis. And this is presented by Dr. Alicia Karakwiri from Iowa State University. And she will go ahead in just a few minutes when her presentation comes up on the screen.
It's coming, I hope. All righty, let me put it in presentation mode. Got it?